Up next in the Heat Check Scouting Report series is the first of our Blue Devil trio, center Khaman Maluach, a consensus 5-star freshman who's anchored the paint for Duke amid their Final Four run. He stands at a very legitimate 7'2" with a reported but unconfirmed 7'6" wingspan, with some decent bulk for that size. He joined the Blue Devils fresh off a run by South Sudan in last summer's Paris Olympics and played for NBA Academy Africa in Senegal previously, having only played ball for about 5 years prior to college. Across 38 games up to the Final Four, Maluach has averaged 8.7 points, 6.8 rebounds, half an assist, and 1.3 blocks in just 21 minutes per game. He shot a blistering 71% overall, 25% from beyond the arc on limited volume, and 76% from the free throw line. He'll be just shy of 19 on draft night, being one of the younger players in this cycle. Here's how Heat Check works. I'm going to identify one draft prospect and grade them on what I believe to be the most generally important skills and aspects of their game: athleticism, scoring, defense, passing and playmaking, and overall feel for the game. After those 5, I'll grade one additional skill relative to that prospect that I think is going to have the biggest effect on their stock. That will be deemed the swing skill. Each skill will be graded on the Heat Check chart, with ranges from freezing all the way to scorching. When that's all said and done, I'll divvy out one final overall score. Starting with Maluach's athleticism, I've gone with the warm grade, as he's not traditionally blow your socks off athletic, but his physical tools are so elite that it more than makes up for it. As we mentioned before and will continue to mention throughout this video, Khaman is 7'2". That is just unteachable size and length. In the verticality department, despite a lack of real airtime on his jumps, he does get off the floor pretty quickly, and doesn't necessarily need the hang time given his standing reach is likely somewhere in the ballpark of 10 feet. He dunked the ball at a great rate this season, 79 times across his 38 games. Most of his value though in this area is tied to his connected and fluid movement at over 7 foot, which allows him to run the floor quickly, dive bomb the rim, and offer some really versatile defense. He's got great foot speed, a nimbleness relative to his size, and is able to flip his hips with relative ease. He's also got a pretty athletic stance, which can go underrated amongst these jumbo bigs that can play pretty stiff or upright usually. He's not the snappiest or twitchiest prospect, but again, his gigantic frame makes up for things more often than not, and should continue to do so at the NBA level. For Maluach's scoring, we've gone with a warm grade. While his offense may be a little dependent on outside forces, and despite him being pretty raw in this category, I think his hyper efficiency and room for growth point to a range of decent outcomes at the NBA level. For the on-paper stats, Maluach averaged 8.7 points and a blistering 71% shooting overall, hitting on 25% of his extremely limited threes, and shooting a capable 76% at the free throw line on nearly 2 attempts per game. With the aforementioned length and mobility, Maluach would be categorized best as a rim runner, scoring the bulk of his points for Duke diving towards the paint. He scored 75% of his points there, and while his face value efficiency is already stellar, a closer look is equally great. 78% at the rim overall, 66% on layups, which hints to good touch. He scored the majority of his points in the paint via 2 ways, cutting and as the roll man, both of which he ranked excellent in per synergy. The pure size and maneuverability are obviously the biggest factors here in what makes him so elite, but there's a ton of underlying things that make him a great finisher too. Incredible hands, soft touch, a truly insane catch radius, great jump timing, and more. He's a massive target, sure, but he knows what to do when the ball gets to him as well. He also scored an unignorable chunk of his points on putbacks, where I think some of his rebounding and strength concerns could rear their head in the NBA, but ultimately he'll get some points on cleanup duty too. With Maluach being so fresh to basketball, there's also the potential for more to be added to his offensive bag, so to speak. Potentially stuff like straight line dribble driving, nothing crazy, maybe 1 or 2 dribbles, as well as stretch big tendencies and more, though these things are likely far down the line and may never apparate with positive impact. Ultimately, I trust Maluach's efficient rim running coupled with his potential to clean up his overall game and even add things down the line. Hence why I think he'll be more than usable as an offensive piece in the NBA from the get-go and especially in the future. Moving on to Khaman Maluach's defense, I've gone with scorching. This is somewhat of a future projection opposed to where his game is at currently, as his defensive product and metrics right now don't point to otherworldly impact, but I think there's a clear path towards improvement to be one of the NBA's best defensive anchors. All of Maluach's physical tools are best put to use on the defensive side of the ball. His size and length makes him a behemoth in the paint, a towering force hard to get the ball over and around, and when you combine this with his more fluid mobility, there's an elite, multi-positional defender waiting to be developed. I mean, just watch the tape, some of these plays are absurd. He blocked just 1.3 shots per game across his 20 minutes, good for 50 total on the season with a 7% block rate. Rather unimpressive numbers comparatively to most defensive-minded fives of drafts past, but a closer look shows he's a legitimate deterrent at the rim and has the ability to put a lid on it at times. Similarly to players like Chet Holmgren, Donovan Clingan, Derek Lively, and even Victor Wembanyama, he's just not a player you want to test over and over again in the paint. He'll come out on top more often than not. He's also a forceful shot blocker, as you can see. Few players are able to generate this much power behind it this often. Like his offensive game, his defensive process and technique could use some refining and stands to get a little more crisp overall, but his sheer size and physical tools make up for it plenty. In terms of pure rim protection, he's currently good with the potential to be elite. His shot block timing is decent, and he contests tons of shots a game and swats his fair share. He's shown early signs of being a game-changing defender that teams could have to game plan around. The intriguing aspect of Maluach's defense is his mobility on this end, which allows him to pack up his camp in the paint and move it to the perimeter, where he can guard one-on-one in space, offer switchability, and more. When defending on the perimeter, his foot speed and coordination really shine. He can cut off drivers, flip his hips with the best of them, he can close out quickly for his archetype, he's fairly handsy, and even if players are able to speed past his massive frame, he's got enough recovery prowess to still be able to make plays more often than not. Of course, he's not going to be some 1-through-5 defender, but his versatility is really tantalizing. He's so good at sliding his feet and staying glued to handlers. The bones are also there for a pretty ridiculous pick and roll defender. Not only is he big and quick enough to play drop, he can do so while blowing up possessions on the handler end at times. His size and movement speed here make him an absolute nightmare for the opposition to deal with, be it trying to get passes or shots up. And again, the rawness shines through on this end too. The scorching grade here was a projection. He can be prone to fouling, there's times his coordination or foot speed fail him, and he's left in the dust by quicker guards. But the important thing is that he doesn't shy away from these things at 7 foot, and the scary prospect is just how much better he can get both on the interior and the perimeter. Overall, I feel good enough about his work ethic that I think he'll continue to improve. Moving on to Maluach's passing and playmaking, I've graded him freezing, although I wouldn't necessarily say this is some gray storm cloud over his resume. It's just not his game as a 7-footer. Across 38 games, he totaled just 18 assists to 29 turnovers. Nearly all of his assists were either getting an offensive rebound and making the easy pass to an open shooter, or very simple DHOs, where he created space by simply existing at 7'2". You can count on one hand assists he had that weren't one of these two things. He posted just a 4% assist rate in his time with the Blue Devils, and most simply just doesn't have the face-up game or general feel enough to operate in passing playmaking situations very often. And again, this isn't some stain on his overall game or a reason to shy away from drafting him. NBA teams just won't be putting him in these situations very often, and that's perfectly fine for his archetype as a two-way rim runner. For Khaman Maluach's overall feel for the game, I've gone with warm. I think when you take a face value look at Maluach's product, you might be left a little wary on his feel for the game. Despite a lot of positive impacts, he can be prone to bad mistakes, and as we've covered, he just generally can look pretty raw on tape. But considering how quickly he's graduated to playing elite basketball talent, I really think this area lands somewhere in the middle and perhaps even on the higher end for 7-foot bigs. He was a South Sudanese refugee, the youngest signee ever at NBA Academy. He played in FIBA at 16, and he's now anchoring the Duke Blue Devils amidst a deep tournament run at just 18. While the overall talent jump to the NBA may be a tough one to make for a still developing big such as Maluach, he seems to be a great recognizer and reader of the game. He's relied on instincts to drive his impact. It really seems to me like he's a player that's been able to make strides at every level so far and will continue to do so in the big leagues. For the Blue Devils' swing skill, I've gone with shooting. He doesn't have much offensive versatility presently. This would add plenty of that while including much needed floor spacing to whatever NBA team he's drafted to. Across his 38 games, Maluach attempted just 16 total 3-pointers, hitting on just 4 of those for 25%. Per synergy, he hit on 37% of his 19 attempted jumpers, a pretty solid mark despite low volume, and he attempted 0 dribble jumpers on the season. Being the only legitimate 5 prospect in the lottery this cycle, Maluach may seem somewhat behind the likes of other bigs like Queen, Newell, CMB, Sorber, and more in this department. But I think his overall touch from all over the court, his 76% conversion rate at the free throw line, and a history of shooting threes across other levels of basketball does work in his favor. The most encouraging aspect of Maluach's shooting is his form, which is actually pretty solid all things considered. His mechanics are smooth and consistent, his energy transfer from top to bottom is good, and the best part is his high release, which given his 7'2" stature is going to give him some leeway in loading up and firing shots off from beyond the arc, no matter how slow. Now, Maluach is certainly a project shooter, as the numbers indicate. There are some truly bad misses. I think Duke was a little wary about him letting it fly in general. Even still, I think whatever NBA team covets his overall skill set as a project big is likely going to give him some grace in this area and allow him to send it from beyond the arc even as soon as year 1. Keep in mind, his being fresh to basketball in general likely hampers this area the most. He's stacked up against players who have been shooting the ball the same way at a decent clip for a decade plus. So while he may be a late bloomer, I feel pretty good about Maluach's eventual development path as a shooter. The grade. I've given Khaman Maluach a grade of 8.1, firmly landing him in my top 10 in the 2025 NBA draft. I think there can be a little uneasiness about the drafting of raw project bigs. The James Wisemans and Mo Bambas of the world have left evaluators and probably even some NBA teams pretty wary. But all signs point to Maluach being a hard worker, a player who is in the early stages of his basketball development, and one that can still offer really good stuff right now, which Duke is seeing in this Final Four run. Any teams in need of a center at the 2025 draft should look to Maluach first, in my mind. I think he projects to be a long-time starting 5 in the NBA, with good baseline big skills like rim running and rim protection, and decent potential to really develop in areas like defending in space, moderate handling, and even shooting. Even if you land on the low end of that outcome and you think he'll only ever be this traditional 5, I think he's going to be really good at those traditional 5 things. And I think that's worth a top 10 pick in this draft. And if you're in the camp of him developing plenty more and adding to his game, I understand any swing on him in the top 5. That's it for this one. Let me know what you think of Khaman Maluach, what you grade him, where you draft him, drop who you want to see in the next heat check, and we'll see you next time.